straight into the combat right now, and it's Sombra Goats from Nova as expected. Xavier's going to respond.
Already right into the thick of it. Nexus super low, but it's actually Queen the first casualty, and with that, suddenly Xavier starts to crumble in that opening fight. So Nova MS just barely able to get the better end of that exchange, also getting the point as soon as it unlocks. And that was with Xavier getting some good early high ground positioning as well.
You can see the mastery here over the Sombra variation because one is nearly at that EMP already, and Nova, after such a fantastic start, opening cap, super high charge on members. Xavier, this is not the start they wanted.
Yeah, running a Sombra Goats both sides of the fence is kind of an interesting thing. It's not something we talked much about in the pre-game, but you're dead right. Nova MS very much outpacing right now.
And they should be able to snowball further. No defensive ultimates available. In fact, no ultimates of any kind other than just one. And he's going to look to capitalize. And for Nova, this should just be a wash.
Xavier are a little bit closer though on the Earth Shatter and the grab, and when the EMP isn't a factor, those definitely are. But there is that EMP. It's actually the first casualty, but they still get plenty enough members and have very little trouble cleaning up the rest of Xavier.
Oh, and just a little bit of a stagger there. So Nexus also went down, so not bad by THK, who manages that despite that loss in the fight, he gets himself now an EMP available along with Queen's Earth Shatter. So Xavier, all things considered, should be able to come back pretty strong.
And that's the thing, as I said as well. Look, Nexus does get his Earth Shatter up, but Queen very much led the ult charge, and Patapan's still leading Crazy S. So Xavier actually kind of bearing well coming into this next fight. But there's the EMP first, and Oyo will Transcendence, but Jervis is already down, so Xavier kind of off to a hot start here. Now just looking to get some more ultimates out. Nice hack on Crazy S, keeps him at bay. The Earth Shatter goes on to SQX, and he will go down. They unfortunately lost Queen as well. I think Patapan might actually just need to commit this here. Graviton Surge, they're trying to bide their time here, maybe see if they can just force Nova MS off, but I think Xavier should have committed more.
I think Xavier should have used the sound barrier here. They had more staying power, but one's about to return the favor with his own EMP. And let's also talk about the fact that Oyo used Transcendence, but unfortunately disconnected from the rest of his team, fighting on high ground. That's why Jervis couldn't be saved. But despite that mishap, Xavier kind of still had the best start.
Now here they come in, the EMP first, followed by the sound barrier, but that's still Queen dead. Patapan, the grab, he still gets to commit it, but it's not as good anymore because Crazy S was able to match. So now Nova MS the worst, sorry, Xavier rather the worst for wear, lacking that main tank, and Xavier struggling to make headway. Now Oyo, another Transcendence if things start to go south, but not going to be able to commit it thanks to that EMP, and it is a good connection. So Xavier going to be able to claw their way back in here as they clean up off the back of that.
And this is important as well because Xavier could not afford, obviously, another flight loss, which would result into a loss for the round, but Oyo doesn't hide away successfully, gets caught in the EMP, cannot use Transcendence, and that should have been the line of play. And for Nova, a little bit strange to see that happening because Nova, you'd expect to have probably all things working as it should, 100-0 this map. Xavier, though, being very stalwart.
By the time one's got his next EMP, Thetacorn should have a Transcendence of his own, so if he could position a bit better than what Oyo just did, then well, they're in business, right? And they've also got an Earth Shatter here that Queen is going to see if he can find an angle to use. But he's the hack. This is bad. He's going to go down. Too far forward, too eager, too overzealous. Oyo's Transcendence as well, very aggressive, but double connect on the Earth Shatter, charging onto SQX. Tay will slip away, but now it's only 3 members, and they're not really going to have a very easy time following up on this grab. Now, unfortunately, only finding Crazy S. They need a bit more. EMP is pretty good as well out from one. They find Patapan off, but now Tay as well. And having flipped the point in their favor already, Nova MS looking to clean up the rest of Xavier here, who don't really have much left to go on. And I don't think Queen ever committed an Earth Shatter in this entire stage, unfortunately. So, Nova MS looking to close out our first map of this semi-final.
And I'll be completely honest here as well, despite Xavier having some token resistance, despite Xavier being able to cap 44%, it didn't seem like realistically that Nova let go of control on this point. It kind of just felt like the game was in their hands, even when they didn't have the point itself. They never really, like I said, lost, had the game slip out of their hands. They were perfectly fine, they were perfectly comfortable, they perfectly had the right kind of win conditions to just come back and secure that point, take us to the next round and be up 1-0.
It does feel like there were maybe some opportunities for Xavier to sort of put on the gas a little bit, things that they didn't really execute well, things that they chose not to use. So might be just a bit of cleanliness issues for them. We'll have to see if they can fix things up.
And it's 2 out of 3 here that Xavier do need a win, and it's got to be the next 2, including this one. And as a reminder, they've already won Oasis in the playoffs. In fact, they even did it in Week 7 versus Cyclone Coupling, but also, as mentioned, Nova MS, just a completely different team.
And playing a completely different thing here, Xavier themselves will also be running that DPS composition. They absolutely dispatched of Cyclone coupling on this on City Center, but in this one against Nova MS, they're really struggling to make headway. Nova MS's DPS is just running circles around Xavier right now.
And it's the Soldier I was going to say versus the Hanzo version, but actually Xavier's going to swap completely now. SQX thought about going on Soldier, then thought very quickly, actually it's probably better just go the 3-3 and expected Patapan to, I was saying, thinking Zarya, but actually the McCree works because you need to deal with one in the sky.
Yeah, this is good. This is one of the ways they can address this, and this is one of the strengths we said was there for Xavier. They've got a lot of potential flexibility in their team comps.
And now looking at ultimate charges for Nova MS as the team keeping their comp as well. Looking very comfortable. Xavier certainly not going to catch up very soon. Have to look at individual playmaking. Double stuns coming out could certainly help.
Patapan and One are in a bit of a pitched battle here. Xavier will eventually need to find some kills, actually get onto the point. That is what's really going to matter. They can't just sit back and fight out for too long. They find Oyo. Now Nexus kind of hang out to dry alone on the point. Will absorb some damage. Sort of waste a bit of time, but does go down. So now Blue trying to harass out Patapan. Ooh, yeah, not going to survive too long in there. So now Xavier, well established on this point. Nice catch on One as well, just to drive the point home. And with that, Xavier going to get control.
And I think the floodgates really start to open once they get that first pick as well. Oyo goes down. Suddenly Crazy as pops down the pulse bomb, can't find a reply. And that's when Nova MS just don't get that counter trade at all. And suddenly they lose too many members. Now you can't really invest in ultimates because you're throwing ults into a already lost fight. And Xavier have given themselves a really big opportunity here. They will get ultimates soon.
Now Patapan. The Deadeye is not super important here. It can zone a little bit, but they really need to deal with the EMP. If he can
kill the pharmacy, that's big.
That's the thing. It does do something against them, but that is not a great EMP. Only finds Queen, and Blue immediately dies for his trouble. It's going to be a Nana boost committed onto Queen as well, so he's honestly pretty fine here as One gets picked out of the skies. And I mean, that was just botched execution out from Nova.
And they know it as well. They're also going to swap here. And if they had a better EMP, One would feel safer to go for the barrage. That's how they could win the fight. But understanding, like, it's all gone sideways for them. Patapan at this stage, if he was maybe closer to spawn, maybe if he wants to take the risk and run back and change, but gonna stay on the McCree for now as Nova have completely gone on to a stock standard 3-3, not even a Winston, just gonna play the Ryan.
Yep, and that does make things a little bit harder for Patapan. He's still gonna get some good damage out, but much harder to confirm and complete those kills unless they can catch some headshots on those squishier supports.
And they want to take the high ground, which will inevitably force Xavier onto the low ground. This is ideal. So now Nova get to walk on top of the point, really pressure out the cap.
Yeah, Xavier just kind of have to give up space for free here. They leave THK on the point to try and keep presence for them while they fish for a pick. They nearly find Blue, but unfortunately not quite. And this is how it's going now. Sound barrier on them to try and push forward. They recognize that otherwise this just goes over to Nova MS for free. So finding Oyo is a good start, but an expensive one for Xavier. They need to find something a bit more, and Nexus might just be the one who's low. There he is going down, plus that bio grenade on Crazy Ass has allowed the mech to get finished off. So Xavier are actually going to be able to hold on during this fight. And we're now in what is probably final fight territory, 95%.
We're
still cleaning up some later kills now. 98, 99, Deadeye for fun. They will force an overtime here, but Xavier should have no trouble holding on to this and clean up those last few members.
And Nova just needed more time. Nova needed time to get those ultimates, and it's not going to happen right now as the ticker will go down and Xavier do secure it 100 to 51. Far more competitive and well read by the team as well. They didn't even need to swap Patapan off the McCree. Patient play is the name of the game once they have Super McCree versus the Ryan Goats, knowing that with the time remaining, if Nova MS do not start a fight quickly and Xavier continue backing off, continue breaking shield, continue feeding damage, and eventually that dam breaks and Xavier will collect that victory. Now 1-1 apiece heading into his university.
Just felt like much better reads there from Xavier, much better understanding of their opponent's win conditions, how to shut them down and how to execute on their own. So now we find ourselves tied up in university. And it's on Nova to actually answer back against Xavier.
And I think we go back to now Sombra Goats on both sides. We saw how this mirror went on Gardens, and if it goes that way again, well, Xavier will certainly be in trouble.
Out the gate now. We're going to get some early position. Queen needs to be careful here.
Nearly.
Turns the shield in time, though.
Let's get started.
THK looking for a similar angle, but needs to not get too close here to Blue.
And Nexus must have hit a really nice fire strike as well. He's definitely leading in terms of ult charge right now. And Xavier losing a lot of space. Look at Nova just walking up.
Oh, nice hack on the side onto Jervis. That's nearly a finish off, but just not quite. It is some pressure, though, and a good push forward. Blue has to cede some space. Xavier need to be careful to not push too far in, but they have bought themselves some more space on the point.
And as that point does unlock as well, Nova, if they can continue pushing Xavier off, they're going to force the hand, and that just now happens where Steadicorn goes down.
Yeah, right as Xavier was starting to push in, they eat too much damage, had to back right out, and Nova MS take the cap, and now they're going to run with it. Xavier in full retreat. Try not to lose any more members. It will just be those two.
THK going down super important because it slows down the EMP challenge for Xavier. We're now one, once again, after winning this fight, does have the EMP off of one engagement. Now going into the next fight, the rest of the charge for the Nova MS side in terms of ultimates should also be coming online.
And Nova MS are outstripping Xavier in ult charge pretty much universally. It's only the sound barrier, which luckily they are able to get out in countenance to this EMP. So what else will Nova MS throw into the mix? They've already committed a transcendence.
THK's ready.
Now it's THK's turn, throws it on top, and oh yo, that got cancelled. That's very hot timing there. Or rather, sorry, had just been used. My apologies at any rate, though. It's a good EMP, and it's going to allow Xavier to clean up a bit of a fight here. So, picking up these last few members, going to be able to get control of the points. Honestly, pretty good.
And this is where, unfortunately, for Nova MS, over the course of two different Sombra players on two separate rounds, hasn't quite had the kind of EMP coverage that will give them a win. It's a bit of a far cry from Gardens where it was just all too perfect. Now Xavier responding in kind, didn't really lose any members, so THK says, time to go back in, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to press the ultimate, and they landed big time.
It does feel like Xavier have come alive a little bit here. They've also got a grab, and there's no easy counter to it. The sound barrier is sort of there.
Good hack.
Yeah, decent hack on Queen. That's a lot of free space. Oh, they find the kill as well. Nexus deciding to commit just to make sure that happened. They've committed a lot in here. The grab, nice bump down. That's Nexus out of the fight for a couple of seconds, but the grab out from Crazy S. He does go down. This is still anyone's fight right now.
It's such a huge turnaround because if Nexus is down into the pit, who's doing the damage in the grab? Craziest went down.
Yeah, and Patapan is still in the fight for this entire time as well with a lot of charge in the pocket. So they're going to be able to clean that one up. Patapan now strips far ahead of Crazy S in terms of ult charge.
You're starting to really believe, okay, can Xavier do this now? They're starting to take the lead as well. 51, 52 and counting, and they're officially there. EMP on both sides, one support ultimate on both sides. It's going to get bloody.
Ooh, good detect though onto THK, but he still finds Oyo with that hack. That's the one you really needed. And one, he did find a lot of members, but it's Xavier getting the faster execution, the quicker kills, and the better cleanup, charging the rest of their ultimates as well. That is probably the most pivotal fight of this map.
Especially because the pivotal ultimates have been used in that one, and Crazy is still reeling from a previous loss. There's only 30% to Patapan's 100. Queen is up there as well. Nexus not quite. Xavier can actually finish here. It's 80+%. They take one more fight win, they're going to take the University.
Hack on Oyo. That means they commit a grab before he can use a Transcendence. That fraction of a second is all it takes. And Xavier slam dunk Nova down. One should be able to stall this point, force some overtime, but it is going to be a tough order for Nova MS to come back in this.
I think there's going to be a lot more over than there is time. Unfortunately, one's probably going to go down if he's not too careful.
Nexus charges forward, him and Jervis both just to get onto the point. Oyo trying to come in hot with the Transcendence, does save Nexus. Nova have actually made it to the point now, but they don't have any ultimates to go on. Nexus has stayed low for the entirety of this fight, and like you said, Didacorn still has a Transcendence if things do turn sour for Xavier. There's a charge in onto Patapan though. That could be a big one. And a huge just shatter. Didacorn's Transcendence still running though, keeping some members alive, but not Queen. Nexus down in the pit for the moment, but they haven't quite got these kills through. Nova MS still in it. Blue goes down and another bump into the pit, so Xavier have more men on the ground, on the point. Will find SQX. Nice CMP as well to get those other two supports, and they're just trying to press this one out. Now one looking for something, will not find it. Found a couple of kills in the back end, and Nova MS barely flipped this. This is nuts.
By the skin of their teeth there, and both tags went down into the hole, and Nova still clutch out. One gets that EMP and is forced to use it, and you'd like to see him hold on to it, but it's unfortunate because he just didn't have enough members there. That actually still gives Xavier a good shot. If Xavier win one fight, they can still take this map.
But this is also slowly eking towards one fight territory for Nova MS themselves. So there we go.
Oh boy.
That's going to be a reasonable EMP, and they are going to get some kills off it, but they've also lost some members. It's still anyone's fight. And Jervis unhacked now. Sound barrier coming out. Saves Blue and one. That could be all they need. Patapan's down. And I think that might just be all she wrote. THK valiantly staying in it to his last, but he is indeed going to be the last. They might get one last shot though.
And this is at 90% now. Xavier will have respawn as they will dive onto this point. Graviton Surge available. It's coming down to Oyo. He's got to make makes sure he uses Transcendence, and one gets a connection on EMP.
And there's nothing to counter that EMP if it does connect well. Even if Sound Barrier comes up, that is not ideal. Xavier really backs against the wall here. The grab. Ooh, dear. It's going to be the Transcendence. Queen's already down. The EMP was decent as well, just to try and ward off the follow-up. These hack members can't get as much done. Stun onto Nexus, but not finished off. Xavier still on the back foot. Now losing Tay. No Sound Barrier, no sir. SQX going to go down as well. And Nova MS will clean this one back through. And my goodness gracious me, Xavier, they had that opportunity. It was so nearly there. If they'd killed one, if they'd killed Nexus just several fights ago. But they don't, and Nova MS claw it back.
They even lob the long-range grab there, knowing that there's not going to be a diva to stop it, knowing that, okay, if we lock up one, he's going to use EMP in the wrong place because he can't translocate forward. It was an okay EMP. It didn't even catch that many members, but still, Nova had it. They had the rest. They had the support ultimates. They had the point control in their favor. And for Xavier, like you mentioned, it was close, but not close enough. And versus a team like Nova, close is just not going to cut it.
I mean, that's a real statement right there for Nova to win that. You know, the very same map that Cyclone Coupling just lost to Xavier last night and then lost that whole series with how it all ended up falling. Look, it doesn't mean to say that Xavier are going to lose the series because that was still extremely competitive. But Nova MS's clutch potential is just that little bit extra there. This is, like I said, a clear statement that this is the real level that you're going to have to overcome now.
And I want to see Xavier maybe even go further, because if they were maybe tightening a few loose screws there, I can definitely see them taking Oasis their way. But I also think now it kind of gets more difficult. Oasis has been one of their more reliable maps, I would say, in recent history, based on how often they've been winning. But, you know, now going into further maps, Hybrid and onwards, Assault, Escort and all of that, I'm expecting Nova to continue this momentum, and Xavier will need to continue doing a lot of work if they want to really make a dent in the series.
I mean, that was just really phenomenal. I want to highlight actually the Sombra mirror there. One did, on the whole, get a lot of high impact connection, but the interesting thing is so did THK, and I think why that's important is when you compare it to Gardens, that's a huge step up for Xavier. So even in the course of this one map, there has already been a step up done for them, which does lead me to believe that they can step it up again now as we move into the later maps of the series. I would like to believe that that's the case as well, purely because I want this to be a close and competitive semi-final.
I also don't want to see Xavier start too slowly, because when you look at how the series went, Gardens was a wash in favor of Nova. You look at your City Center and you say, okay, that's a nice win. But going on to University, like if Gardens win a little bit better, maybe if they got Gardens, we wouldn't even go to University. But it's the fact that it takes Xavier, at least so far, looking like a little bit of time to get going. We'll see if Kings Row will be a bit of a faster beginning, and I say that in context of Nova, who have been classically, at least this season, known as a team to have themselves slow starts. So if this goes long, Nova get better.
Right? Like, that's certainly what history would tell us, but now Xavier do get the benefit of being able to pick the map themselves. As much as they would have been happy to see Oasis previously, it's still not their pick. They're not necessarily dictating the pace, but now they get to pick Kings Row. And I think that could be a strength point for them. Even though it's a map they lost against Cyclone Coupling last night, I think they will have taken some lessons from that in the first instance. And I also think it helps them push Nova MS a little bit, see what else is maybe feasible, what else can Nova MS bring to the table, and maybe they lose it and have to reverse sweep, but by then they've properly sounded out their opponent.
And this is going to be, I think, still a decent map for Nova. We've seen almost everyone play. Have we actually seen every single playoff game go to Kings Row? Memory serves correct, at least 3 of them now will be, if not all 4. So every single team has got a decent idea of this map, and we're also in a place where if you are Nova, look, you have just seen Xavier play both on Oasis and Kings Row, so if nothing else, the information is certainly there.
Right? I mean, I think this is going to be another sort of tense, close one. I do just want to remind us what happened last night on Kings Row with Xavier. That did end up going to a time bank, and a time bank that, if I'm not mistaken, they came into with a lead, but unfortunately weren't quite able to close things out from there. So this is a bit of an interesting situation. Last night, Xavier had that one map earlier. It was after that things got drawn up, and then they accelerated away. But this is already off to a different start, and like we've been mentioning, against a team that tends to accelerate in the second half in their own right.
Let's talk about trends as well, because for the other 3 playoffs matches, 2 quarters and 1 of the semis, by the time we got to halfway mark, it was 1-1 apiece. Both teams have always consistently been able to take at least one map before we reach map number 3. And if that trend continues, Xavier would have to take Kings Row to really be competitive.
That's the thing as well. I would say that they need to take it to have a real fighting chance in that second half. Like you're sort of saying there, it's for so many reasons, right? Like there's a point where we're just kind of restating it, but the overall pace at which their opponent plays, the realistic opportunities for them to pick up map wins, and now they also do, for what it's worth, face a situation where they didn't actually win the first control map, at least last night against Cyclone Coupling. If things went the full distance, they go to a map 5, you've got the benefit of having won the first control. Here they don't even have that to fall back on. Realistically, you feel like they actually need to win the next 3 if they are going to be the ones who win here tonight.
And it does seem like the microcosm of that opening Oasis comes into effect, where it's a similar story, right? They didn't win Gardens, so they didn't have that extra one to fall back on. Guess what Nova did? Because they won Gardens, they go to University, they did lose City Center, and winning University, that's enough for them. Going here, if you let Nova take a 2-0, I think that may just be a little too insurmountable for Xavier to overcome. I think this has to be a bit of a strong comeback from it, or at least give you some real confidence that, okay, if it's super close, if the margin is so tiny that Xavier could have had this, then you still go into map 3 thinking, well, there is still a good shot, but that's the minimum requirement.
And even then, in that situation, again, the microcosm there on University was close, was good, but it wasn't close enough. And I don't care how close it is over these next 2 maps. If Xavier don't end up winning them, then close isn't close enough, right? So that's the thing. Yeah, close for this one does say, well, maybe they can overcome it coming on to Assault. But then there's the other argument that could say, even when they come close, no matter how close they get, they don't ever actually overcome Nova MS. So I think really what we keep coming back to, right, is statements need to be made here from Xavier if they want to show that this is genuinely going to be a competitive semi-final where they have a real shot at the grand final.
Yeah, and based on the previous quarterfinals, well, this will always be difficult. This will always and should be a tougher matchup than it has been versus Cyclone Coupling, and Nova MS are now going to Kings Row and looking to prove why.
I'll be curious to see what these teams pull out of the defense as well, for what it's worth. We've been seeing a bit more Bunker, a bit more Baptiste as well here on Kings Row, and we'll also therefore get to see for the first time whether or not Nova MS have that in their repertoire. You'd like to imagine they do.
I spot a Bastion, Orisa.
I see a Baptiste as well.
And as history would say, certainly are going to get it. Might even get it on both sides, but I was going to also mention that Nova are not going to be the kind of team that will shake your hand for a gentleman's agreement to just go goats. They're saying, you know, we got the players to do other things. We are going to do other things, and Xavier, you can come meet us there.
Xavier couldn't quite win on the iterations of 3-3, but maybe they can win on something a little bit more asymmetric. So now, coming out the gate, they're kind of just running a 3-3 of their own. It's just a little bit of a different incarnation. I think they're going to swap off here.
Yeah, this will be Patapan onto the Hanzo now. Now, we've seen Kimo Hororo dismantle the team with Hanzo.
Yep.
Patapan's got to do the same. That's if he actually wants to stay. Maybe that was just a scouting arrow.
Okay. Now coming out on the Genjis. This is a little bit different. This is actually what we saw Jupiter do and struggle with against Talon.
And it's going to be, I guess, a different type of poke here. You got kind of half dive, a little bit of poke with the Pharah, break those shields, and watch for the ult charge as well. One's the X factor with the Sombra, because that's not part of a bunker.
Good harass from Patapan, just keeps Crazy as busy long enough for a biotic grenade to come through, but they haven't quite confirmed the kill, so now THK ends up in too deep and for too long. So now Queen as well getting picked, and I mean, this has not really been much gain for Xavier.
That was sneaky from Patapan, just staying above, and you can see as well, Blue's like, where's that damage coming from? But Xavier are not really going to get any distance here. What they do get is they're forcing the bunker to at least go on the ground, and that's going to be short-lived because Nova going to reset up on high ground, while Xavier are collecting their members back from spawn, and now you got to do the work all over again, and there's EMP coming up.
They're also doing it without a Pharah now. It's just a little bit harder to get the spam damage to dislodge members from the right.
Doubling down on the dive.
Yeah, and I mean, that to me says that they want to get a lot out of this Dragon Blade, which honestly might be difficult if they get EMP'd at the wrong time.
This is where now, if you are Nova, it's a defensive EMP. By the way, you're not going to use it offensively because you can't dive on top of them, but you've already got a pick, so this fight's kind of already going your way.
Yeah, like Xavier is smart enough to not commit on that, but I mean, you'd wish that they hadn't lost Queen in the first place there.
And this is going to be difficult now. One has actually already used the EMP, and in some ways I would have liked to have seen him save it, because what you want to do is, as Xavier going for Nano Blade, for example, you pop the EMP on your own bunker, and Patapan's shut down, and both those ultimates are gone.
Ooh, that was a little bit close on the sleep dart, but there we go. Nano Blade going to come out.
Blue.
Yeah, okay, that's a bit of a whoops, but found one kill. They really need to get more with that blade. This has so far been a trade.
That's the most important kill, though.
That's the thing. The Xavier are starting to make their way in on this one, but it's not quite over just yet. Patapan eats some damage, but Oyo eats a bit more. Nice biotic grenade, though, is going to make it really hard for Xavier to stay in this. Now, might have lost too many members. With the closer respawn, though, they do have that to lean into, and with THK and Queen staying in this fight, I think they might just be able to secure this.
I think especially because THK can also use the EMP if they really need to secure it. In fact, Nova MS would do wonders to actually force that out.
Tay finishing blue before going down is really important as well, because that just removes extra damage that could back up anything else Nova MS try to do on the point. With that gone, they realize they have to give it up, so Xavier will get themselves the cap.
I think Nova was certainly architects of their own demise here. Like I mentioned, EMP used a little bit too aggressively when, to be fair, they're running a very defensive comp. If they saved it, they would have shut down Patapan, but otherwise, they just lost their most important member in that bunker. Have to now swap off that composition entirely, keeping the Sombra, of course, but the other members, unfortunately, are going to reset.
This is interesting. This is Reaper. We saw it briefly out from Xavier on Rialto last night. Didn't get a whole lot done, so nice to
Keyword
get
briefly.
Though. That's the thing. Now we might be able to see it to get a bit more done, because with that EMP connecting, Patapan has a much more free reign, especially on those tanks that he wants to be drilling down. So going to be able to find a few more kills, a bit more success this time around.
And I say briefly in a way that is unfortunately not positive, and Patapan probably knows it. And that's because on Rialto, it just didn't really do that much, and for good reason. I mean, there's so many ways to shut it down. Now that there's even a Sombra in the mix, look, if you get hacked out, that's sadly most of your kit gone. And you can argue, okay, Reaper doesn't need most of the kit once you're really in action, but Reaper, how long do you stay in action for realistically, too?
He's actually, he looked like he was going to swap, but he's staying on it. So now there's that EMP factor going to get right on top of him. Finds blue though, so I mean, maybe he is just going to be fine. Nexus getting aggressive with the Primal Rage. They do actually need to give a bit of respect to Patapan though. The damage that he can lay out, especially onto a tank like Nexus, is certainly enough to kill him. So good catch on Tay, but they're still struggling to actually make much headway in this defense right now, Nova MS. They're slowly but surely getting drilled down and taken apart.
And that's why the ultimate doesn't do anything. Sorry.
Yep, the DPS does though, so he is still getting some DMEX, getting some kills, getting the damage out. Might be able to get blue out of the picture here as well. This is, mind you, with the help of some members moving forward. Queen had a nano boost on him for a chunk of that. So with that, Xavier are looking like they want to cap here.
And I think for Nova as well, the fact that the EMP didn't get them enough mileage means they don't get enough picks. And one is even a decent amount close to his next one. And this is where Xavier are thinking, well, to be fair, we just capped out B with this, and despite Death Blossom doing nothing, the rest of the kit was working, so keep the shotguns firing, keep those cylinders hot, and keep THK on the Sombra, because EMP is up.
This is now Xavier. We made a lot of ground. Good EMP onto some of these members. They aren't quite finishing these members off quickly enough. Even Nexus survives for long enough for the Sound Barrier to come out. And now, yeah, like you said, the EMP on the side of one, way better. And very quick kills coming through. So, bit of a tale of two Sombras there. And
the sneaky charge that you don't see coming through. Patapan, yep, he's going to give in now. It's going to go for the Zarya. This is better for the long term. And part of the reason, it's not even just the Reaper, it's the fact that, okay, what are you giving up here? You've given up the Zarya, and not having the Graviton Surge, not having the bubbles, or the extra tanking power does impact your ability to push.
Xavier want to play that game no longer, so just going to try and line things back up. They're a little behind in economy, but a pick could honestly set them underway very quickly here.
They get free positioning because with Oyo hacked out, there's no Transcendence, and now Earthshatter.
Ooh, nicely placed, but Oyo's got the response, so no one's going to go down from that one. And now Xavier are the ones getting forced back in their own right. Nexus nearly a little overextended there. Actually might still be. There we go. Patapan scoops it up and now opens up on the back line in the form of Jervis. Now suddenly Xavier just totally underway. Like we said, all it would take is maybe a kill, something that comes through, and well, they found it on Nexus.
Well, getting the Rhine down is usually the most impactful kill anyway, but it's doubly so when Nexus basically has an Earthshatter. He was at 99. He was going to respond with his own pretty quickly, but they don't get to do that. Now Nova on the back foot as the card approaches the end.
And also Patapan close enough to a grab that if he doesn't die here, he'll be able to commit it, and Bittercorn's going to see that happens for him. Nice CMP. Struggling to follow up on it while they're stuck in the grab, but the Biotic Grenade Not really doing a whole lot for Nova MS, so now it's Xavier's turn to press the go button on the grab. They're going to find a lot more success with it, and with just over a minute left, they're going to push that cart over the line.
Nova just kind of disappeared towards the end there. I mean, the Earth Shatter connects to nothing. The Graviton Surge maybe initiates the push for them, but with the next EMP coming online for THK and the momentum still maintained throughout the rest of that push from the beginnings of C, it was just the fact that Xavier just were not going to be stopped. Nova could not find any footing. They just seemed a lot more lost than you'd expect. After A, it was not really much of a defense anymore.
Speaking of, though, we're now going to have to see what Xavier can accomplish on their defense, because look, they capped out. That's good. We at least get a time bank worst case scenario. It's not a lot of time, though, and you would consider Nova MS should be able to push very effectively here. They should have a strong offense, so it's still going to be on Xavier here, I would say, to actually measure up on the defense.
And very predicated on what that initial A defense looks like, because Xavier, are they a team that really wants to go for bunker? Right now, you'd say probably not. They are going to potentially test out Patapan on the Widow again, and Nova are preparing for a potential bunker. You can already see the remnants of what looks like a dive, the fire that one plays as well. They're expecting that it is a possibility, and once they see it's not, I kind of maybe assume they go back on 3-3 or something else.
Questions.
Look into my eyes.
Yeah. Just the two tanks getting connected. It does mean it's SQX on the D.Va as well, something that he can flex onto, but tends to not be their D.Va player usually.
So it does make things a bit awkward. It means if you are going to swap the D.Va around and you want someone else playing it, your normal player on it, we'll see what happens anyway. Xavier, that's not a good start.
Yeah, this is where you do have that compositional advantage as the attacker anyway. You can wait and see what the defender has and then answer it, but suddenly because of that one pick, it's all got to be Patapan now. He's going to have to get a lot of work done.
Especially against the Flyers. If you can get one down, that would be ideal, but you even see Nexus, he's just on that flank, looking for an opportunity to jump on top of Patapan, and while it's happening, one's doing work.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because THK went down early as well, Nova MS can just put all their attention onto Patapan. It's very hard for him to get anything done, so Nova MS just kind of had it all there with that opening frag. Okay, Patapan does still prove that he is decent at Widowmaker. Actually, Thittercorn finds one. They might still be in for a shot here. Get some boots on the ground though, so Patapan is basically being a sacrificial lamb here. Doesn't take anyone down with him, so Xavier coming in with this last gasp. They lose SQX pretty properly. They're going to go ahead and commit an EMP though. This is pretty major. They find Oyo, but they're still only getting traded out here. SQX might just get back in the mech though with this trade. They res on Thittercorn. They're still in this one. Goodness. Xavier are going to find a way to force Nova MS back.
Yeah, I mean, the risk pays off here, and Xavier going to maintain the hold onto A. And that's actually going to, again, force a bit of time, but also for Nova now, going to force ultimates. Nova won't have the same momentum. They won't have that same opening pick, you'd imagine anyway, unless things go quite poorly for Xavier, but unlikely for Xavier to just give that away for a second time.
Nova MS kind of have it all, though, coming into this next one. Oyo dies, though. Too much pressure. They commit a minefield, and Thittercorn has already died to the Dragon Strike. Gets res, but this is SQX out of the mech. Queen very low. Nearly has a Primal Rage, and will need to commit it as soon as he's got it if they want to stay in this fight. They're nearly coming up on an EMP out from THK, but Blue still held on to his. It's going to be the Transcendence from Oyo. They finish off Queen. He did not want to commit the Primal Rage, and I think this is Xavier going, all right, we'll just let this point go. We've got a couple of minutes off the clock, got that extra defense that we weren't expecting. Let's just let this happen.
And this is where Nova it becomes quite costly. So despite them having more ultimates, this is why it was going to work out for Xavier no matter what. If they win or lose that fight, they've taken enough space and time away that Nova was going to have quite a difficult engagement. If they were going to win A, they were going to spend a lot, and that's exactly what happened. EMP available now. Up against THK's also EMP. Guess what? No side has a defensive ultimate, so whoever uses first, and if they can catch the other Sombra, that's a big deal.
Queen popped Primal Rage there just to swap. I feel like maybe you just swap straight away without pressing Q. But that's just me. I'm old-fashioned. Now coming out on the Reinhardt though. Big EMP out from Blue, but bigger one, I would argue, out from THK, and Xavier are going to come out the better of that exchange, at least in terms of the kills on the board. But now Nova MS find a second wind. It could be anyone's fight, but with Nexus still in it, that could be a lot of damage. With THK still in it, is way more damage. Nexus just ends up being the last guy to die.
Nexus really cleans up there, gets a little bit extra, and that's kind of coming through from the big EMP, even though Nova MS had the better start in terms of the actual damage. One's unfortunately now going to change without even having the chance to use a rocket barrage, and players are going to swap. The best time to put one back on Sombra is after Blue had already EMP'd.
This is where Xavier have had an opportunity to kick-start things rather back on Nexus. He is going to come up on that Earth Shatter sooner than Queen if they're not careful. That's what Nova MS might just have to lean into for this fight.
If Nova just play aggressively here, if they know that there's no ultimates on the other side, they can really get something done before the EMP becomes an issue.
Nice hack on Nexus, though, and that means the EMP may just... Oh, never mind. Jervis has found THK, so not going to be an issue. But Queen does still have his Earth Shatter available. Very low, though. Doesn't want to commit it. Chooses to anyway, and that just leaves him vulnerable to death.
Both stuns, man. Both Ryans failed to get the Shatter through.
Well, I mean, you'll take it if you're Nova, because you at least killed the other Reinhardt. So, with that, they just kind of walk back onto the payload.
Yeah, I mean, I think both teams will take something out of that. The fact that Xavier gets to sort of back out there and retreat with minimal losses, considering how disastrous it would have been if their whole team was on their back, and the fight starts again.
Double defensive ultimates here from Xavier. Hack onto THK means the EMP is stalled out, and that could be all the difference here. Xavier won't have any defensive ultimates against one, but there we go. They do get the EMP off just earlier. One might still look for one of his own, because they didn't get any kills on that. It was a bit wonky, and now with this grab coming out super late as well, that was a series of mis-executions from Xavier. Two defensive ultimates when they only needed one, EMP that didn't get good connection, and a very late grab as well. Nova just kind of get that for free.
I think Xavier just want to throw everything there. They understand, look, this is going to be a defense we want to really commit into. We're very serious about trying to maintain B here in a similar way to how they handled A. Big difference is it didn't pay off this time, like you sort of mentioned. Just didn't quite get the kind of connections and value they were searching for, which allows Nova to push through 3 minutes in hand and ultimates in hand too.
And you feel like they should have. They had an advantage. Now a bit on the back foot. They're going to have to really leverage maybe this Earth Shatter, maybe this anything, but that's not really got a lot done for them. The good hack onto Nexus, but they can't follow it up, and now all these members starting to drop down, so Xavier still trying to find whatever ultimate is going to allow them to come back.
You got to be scared about the snowball right now, because it's 1 minute and 11 seconds for Xavier, but what it's going to be for Nova, they can possibly get 2 minutes plus here if they play very well.
Ooh, THK just barely avoiding the hack here, but now this is Xavier having to dive onto the point with really no ultimates to work with. Earth Shatter, though, from Nexus finds no connection, but Queen's still going to go down. Transcendence from Oyo to make sure they keep Nexus alive, and it does work. So, Jervis nearly got a bump, but not quite. Dedicorn, and this is, again, double defensive ultimates. If they don't get kills while this is channeling, then Xavier a little bit on the back foot for the rest of this fight, but they find Nexus. That is very important, and THK gets his EMP just a fraction of a hair before one does, and this time they will follow up and finish the kills before one gets a chance to use his EMP.
Now let's talk about the fallout from all of those events as well, because for Xavier, they completely cleaned out. Queen is maybe nearly there, Patapan's a little bit closer, but because one already has an EMP, ends up saving it from that last engagement, and there are no support ultimates because both were used and no counter EMP. You'd expect Nova to just walk in here, EMP everybody, and cap the point.
One's still in position, but THK did find Oyo. The hack on Patapan is the biggest impact one because that was the grab. That means Crazy S can commit his for free. They've already get down so many kills. Xavier gonna have a very hard time. THK did, no, he's not even gonna be able to hold on to try and force the payload, the overtime to get Patapan back in on it. So barely 10 seconds separating these two teams. Xavier might be willing to walk away with that, but I mean, you feel like there are some spots where with cleaner execution, Xavier could have actually been in a much more advantageous position.
And two ultimates that they just don't get to use, sadly. Patapan going down, Queen going down, the only two that maybe could have saved them is now going to be a bit of a past thought as we head into the time bank. It's 122 versus 111. Xavier going to attack again, and the margins are close enough that, to be fair, we now talk about Xavier tightening the screws even further, or tightening the screws to really start with here, because maybe previous issues still exist. But it is winnable. It is a state where either team can take this map, and we've already measured out the stakes and how important it is for Xavier to get one back before we go to the break.
This is interesting. Nova MS, they do defend first because they have the larger time bank. They're actually deciding this time, no Baptiste, no bunker, nothing too fancy. We're going to stick with this Sombra Goats. It's worked for us. They are flexing Oyo on to an Ana, which I do like here.
And I will say Xavier didn't have the greatest A defense outside of that miracle save when they all sort of just came back in and threw whatever ultimates they had. And if it wasn't for that, Nova probably would have camped out. And even with that, it gave Nova a lot of early momentum onto B. But we don't want to look at B too much because it's all about A. If you don't get A, you don't go to B, and you don't have a lot of time to get A.
Now just pushing inwards. I mean, this is one of those, realistically, you've got one shot. If you take it slowly as well, it's especially true. And Xavier actually decided they want to go into full, want to go ahead, pick up that Ghost of their own.
And I'll tell you what works in a one shot. If you are going to have one good attempt with 1 minute, EMP would do it for you. That's why both teams are running Sombra. And right now, it is Queen hacked out.
Yeah, and one massively leading in that ult charge as well for that EMP. So Xavier, the window closes very fast if they're not careful. And they're not exactly building up much of a head of steam here.
And Jervis taking a bit of a chunk as well. Queen hacked out again.
They need to be careful not to push too far forward though, because every time they do, Xavier's damage output is taking them a bit by surprise, but they're still just waiting on that EMP. 20 seconds remaining. One might get it in time.
I think he will, and that's really diddly as well, because Xavier don't have any ultimates. Maybe Padapan gets this. THK still too far away.
They're going to need it. They're going to need it before that EMP comes up as well, but they also need to not get too eager for it. Otherwise, they could end up in trouble. They have it available.
Grab.
Commits it straight away. Now they need to barrel on in. They need to get the kills. They need to make this count for something, but they're barely getting crazy. Yes, Xavier now coming out one. Going to cancel that quick smart. Queen dead before he can Earth Shatter. Now it's anyone's ball game as Xavier taking a lot of hurt, but they've got an EMP, they're committed, but can they follow up on it? They've only got THK and Padapan to deal out the damage, but Padapan, he's got no trouble dealing damage, and they do get a late game Transcendence there to keep them alive on that point. So Xavier coming out the better of that exchange, but only by a fraction.
Padapan is such a clutch play here, such a key player, gets that Graviton Surge so quickly that Nova have no response. Oyo's playing in Ana, he doesn't have a Transcendence. The Nano Boost goes on to a player, it maybe saves him for a little bit, but one really needed the EMP quicker, but he just couldn't quite get there.
Now distance really counts, and honestly, Nova MS have all the right tools to stop Xavier short. A lot of ultimates that cannot be answered here on the side of Xavier. The first is going to be the grab. They've also got an Earth Shatter if this doesn't work out. They've already found so many members. Queen got his Earth Shatter down, but they haven't got much for it. And now Nexus his own Shatter to get those remaining members on their backs. And with that, Xavier won't be getting any distance at all on this cart. It is essentially just on top of the cap itself. However, 1 minute 22 is still a very achievable defense for Xavier. It's still anyone's map.
And I think Nova get the next best thing right, because if they don't get the cap onto, if they don't, hold A at least, if they hold this cart right at the entrance, and they were confident because they knew they had ultimates coming up. They knew, okay, we barely lost that fight onto A. If we come back quickly and sort of get in here during overtime where Xavier and both teams realistically have slower respawns, but you drop the grab down, Earth Shatter to follow up, you know you had the combo. Xavier, they were probably fortunate enough just to get A and a little bit of cart push. Yeah. They'll be happy with what they've got, because within about a minute-ish, just getting that first cap is usually already enough.
Also really smart there for Nova MS to play to the objective. Too often in the past we have seen teams in this time bank decide to dive onto point A to try and stop it there, lose and give up way more space than is necessary. I like the discipline to just let that go and come back in quickly for another fight.
I also like the decision to go for the Batiste bunker here, and the reason for that is typically it takes a long time to dismantle this bunker. Even if you have the correct counters, even if you know how to play against it, you need like 2 minutes to do that. In 122, that's not quite enough unless Xavier makes some serious mistakes or Nova MS really play out of their minds and find an insane pick-off. This might just take until the overtime to even get Xavier to budge.
I mean, they did last time though, right? Remember THK dropping super early. This time though on the Ash, it's going to be a bit more difficult. Nova MS though, they know what they're up against. Padapan having to take a quick reposition. No one dead just yet on either side of this one, but one kill either way could totally flip this.
And look at the investment. It's double poke from the Hanzo and the Fire, but also the EMP if required. If nothing else works, Nova are very much trying to counter this as best as possible.
Ooh, that's a lot of hurt onto THK. Stays alive, but now Nova MS feel brazen enough to push onto the points.
You'll get a lot more brazen once you see the immortality field being used. Once that goes away, you know the defense is not going to have the same capability. So that's really what Nova's trying to bait out right now, and that's a huge pick.
Yep, one extra arrow, one extra rocket, Patapad down, and they don't have a res available. So now they're just trying to out-damage. They nearly finish off Nexus, but nearly is not nearly enough.
The cap.
Patapan coming back in on the Tracer. Might just get back to this point in time. Xavier gonna have to find a time to commit. They've got the amplification matrix down. They've found Nexus, but they need to find a lot more. THK, a fraction of a hair from death this whole time. They have forced Nova MS back just a touch.
We'll see what Nova MS do now because they're coming up to ultimates, and this is Patapan on a Tracer. The bunker has been busted. The bunker's on the ground.
Nano boost committed out. THK still low. There it is. Dragon strikes the first one. That's also the nano boost onto Tay. That's a little bit offbeat. And all these kills coming through. Xavier also dying late. Already a couple of ticks here for Nova MS. Means they probably won't get back to this point before that cart comes out the gate.
I'll tell you what, insurance is expensive, but for Nova MS, it's going to pay off. Blue has the EMP available, and as soon as Xavier have to contest, it's going to be EMP time.
THK's already dead. He also knows that Patapan's diving through. Patapan found it though, so hold on. Patapan might just be able to touch this before the cart gets there. He's got to go now. There we go. Gets on it. But can the rest of the team get in before Patapan goes down? He's ducking and weaving. Queen comes in the nick of time, but his teammate's already dead, and now it's just him still waiting for the rest of these teammates, and they're just that little bit slower. They're trying to get on this 0.48 meters, and every time a boot touches that spot, they die immediately. Shoes come off, that means dead. Xavier not quite going to measure up. Nova MS now take it to match point.
And additional articles of clothing as well. Gloves come off for Nova MS. It's all about the business. It's 2-0 now as well. And
Jackets are off as well, I guess.
Jackets off, glasses off, facial hair off.
Hold on, glasses back on.
No.
I can't see otherwise.
Just,
This is all just stuck on. But I mean, yes, honestly, Nova MS have again said close is not close enough. It was at 99-99 on City Centre of Oasis, and now it's a very tight-knit time bank on Kings Row. But twice in a row now, it has not been Xavier getting that last little oomph to finish a map and actually win it.
And let's talk about where it got really close for them as well. First of all, time bank, very similar, but Nova had the advantage. Let's talk about what happened during that time bank. Yes, they took A, this is talking about Xavier, but instantly lost as soon as B happened.
Yeah.
Nova still in control. Nova, yeah, they take a couple punches, but they land the knockouts every single time.
Yeah.
Then it'll go the other way around. Okay, they take A, and then they still have ults. They still have EMP. Sure, yeah, Blue got annihilated by Patapan, but didn't really feel like that was going to be the end. Didn't feel like, okay, well, Nova lose now. It's like, well, let's wait for him to respawn, use it anyway.
Right.
Nova just didn't feel like they were ever going to actually lose.
And when you look at how the timings ended up playing out on Xavier's own defense, if they'd got at least as far as that archway, they might have actually come in with 6 members for their next defense in that time bank, and maybe you end up in a winnable position. But I mean, again, it's this almost is not enough because Nova executed better. They read a condition better. They backed off earlier in the fight that lost them the points so that they could come back sooner immediately afterwards. They played to the objective of time bank, honestly, better than any team has this entire season.
And you get to do that when you have the advantage as well. You get to have that first defense, and you get to see, okay, what does the other team do on offense? We set the standard here, we set the objective, then you can play to the objective. That 10, 11 seconds here actually ends up making a bigger difference than I think a lot of people would account for.
Yeah.
Certainly more than what Xavier would have been happy about. And now going into the halftime, for the first time in playoffs so far, it's been a 2-0 in favor of one of the teams. And Xavier now staring at a possible reverse sweep, and Nova staring at the possibility of a grand final, which all happen.